Hello, fellow humans, and welcome to Let's Ask AI, where I'll ask Al, my AI assistant, the questions we all want to know the answer to. Al, researchers are saying that the collapse of the West Antarctic ice sheet may be irreversible. This could mean flooding for over 200 U.S. cities. Humans should worry less about AI destroying the Earth and more about humans destroying the Earth.
If the West Antarctic ice sheet collapses, it would raise sea levels by about 10 to 13 feet. This would inundate many coastal cities around the world, including many in the United States. According to a 2022 study by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, over 200 U.S. cities would be at least partially underwater if the West Antarctic ice sheet collapsed. The NOAA study also found that over 6 million Americans would be displaced by sea level rise from a West Antarctic ice sheet collapse. This would have a devastating impact on the U.S. economy and society. The following are some of the specific consequences that U.S. cities could face. Miami is one of the most vulnerable cities in the world to sea level rise. A 10-foot sea level rise would submerge much of the city, including the downtown core and Miami Beach. New York City is another city that is highly vulnerable to sea level rise. A 10-foot sea level rise would inundate parts of Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. It would also flood the subway system and make the city more vulnerable to storm surge. Galveston is a coastal city in Texas that is located on a barrier island. A 10-foot sea level rise would inundate much of the island, including the city of Galveston. New Orleans is a coastal city in Louisiana that is located below sea level. A 10-foot sea level rise would make the city even more vulnerable to flooding. In addition to the direct impacts of inundation, the collapse of the ways would also have a number of indirect impacts on U.S. cities. For example, it could lead to saltwater intrusion into groundwater supplies, increased erosion, and more frequent and severe storms. Here are some specific adaptation measures that U.S. cities can take to prepare for the impacts of the ways collapse. Build seawalls and other coastal defenses. Seawalls and other coastal defenses can help to protect cities from flooding and storm surge. Elevate buildings and infrastructure. Elevating buildings and infrastructure can help to keep them above the reach of rising seas. Relocate people and infrastructure from vulnerable areas. In some cases, it may be necessary to relocate people and infrastructure from areas that are at high risk of flooding. Invest in public transportation and other transportation options that are not as vulnerable to flooding. Develop emergency plans and evacuation procedures for sea level rise and other climate-related hazards. It is also important to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to slow the rate of sea level rise. This can be done by switching to renewable energy sources,